world needs to stop being boring. Yeah, you. Boring is easy. Everybody can be boring, but you're gooder than that. Life is not a game, people. Life isn't a cereal either. Well, it is a cereal. And if life is a game, aren't we all on the same team? I mean, really, right? I'm on your team, be on my team. This is life, people. You got air coming through your nose. You got heartbeat. That means it's time to do something. A poem. Two roads diverged in the woods, and I took the road less traveled. It hurt, man! Really bad. Rocks, thorns, and glass. My parts broke. Wah! Not cool, Robert Frost. But what if there really were two paths? I want to be in the one that leads to awesome. It's like that dude Journey said, don't stop believing unless your dream's stupid. Then you should get a better dream. I think that's how it goes. Get a better dream and keep going. Keep going, and keep going. What if Michael Jordan had quit? Well, he did quit. No, he retired. Yeah, he retired. But before that, in high school, what if he quit when he didn't make the team? He would have never made Space Jam. And I love Space Jam. What will be your Space Jam? What will you create will make the world awesome? Nothing if you keep sitting there. That's why I'm talking to you today. This is your time. This is my time. It's our time. We can make every day better for each other. If we're all on the same team, let's start acting like it. We got work to do. We can cry about it, or we can dance about it. We were made to be awesome. Let's get out there. I don't know everything, I'm just a kid. But I do know this. It's everybody's due to give the world a reason to dance. So get to it. You've just been pep talked. Create something that will make the world awesome. Play ball.
Oh, it is going to be an awesome day. Don't Stop Believing. That's one of my favorite clips of all time. And you all, I hope you're here because you want to take that road to awesome. So let's do it. Let's do it together. Just a couple notes for today. We've awesome things for you. That's going to be my word now, I think, today. We have so many great questions coming from you all. In our chat section, I want you all to be really aware that is a place that is geared for your presenters, for you to be asking questions to your presenters in a very professional fashion. It's less of a chat with each other type of place. Those are recorded, and we are really, really supporting our presenters and faculty. They're excited to see those questions. So please keep it to great questions that you've been coming up with. Today we have a lot going on. We have wonderful how to pay for college 101 today, right in this session. After this, we'll have lunch if you feel like dropping in with Megan and staff. That is an optional thing. 1 o'clock, you'll have your flight paths today. 2 o'clock, we have an incredible Earth Sciences department, has many different presenters coming to share different perspectives. 3 o'clock, you're Ask the Experts. We will have our financial aid officers there today if you have more questions than you'll be able to have answered this morning. 4:30, oh my gosh, don't miss it. We have International Student Panel. It'll be fantastic. We have students from around the world who are around the world zooming in to speak with you about their countries. And then this evening, we have a really special event from 6 to 7 o'clock with our NAACP, Eric Richardson, President, and Barbara Marbury, myself, and Megan Faulkner, How to Find Your Voice. It's going to be a really great session as well. Lots to do. So for now, I'd love to introduce you to Nick Dickus. He is one of our financial aid officers at the University of Oregon. and he has a lot to share with you. Welcome, Nick.
Thanks, Laura, and good morning, everybody. I'm here to talk about something that we all think about a lot, which is money. And you're hearing all these awesome things about University of Oregon and college. You're hearing this week about how to make it happen for you. And a big component of that is the financial question, right? Because it does cost money to go to college. So I'm going to demystify that process for you. We're going to start with a presentation, and you are welcome to ask questions in the chat throughout the presentation. And then I'll leave some time at the end of the presentation where I'll get to some of those questions. And then we're going to actually look at, like, very specifically, what is it like for a student to pay for college? So Josie from your SAIL team is going to share with you a budget. So, what might a student be thinking about in terms of what are my costs and how to pay for it? And you're going to see how a couple of scholarships can make a really big difference in affording college and how you can make it happen for yourself. So I'm going to share my screen and we'll get started with the presentation. Now, these slides are going to be available to you through SAIL as well, so you can refer to them. But of course, if you've got some notes that you want to take throughout the presentation, go ahead and do that. All right. So here's our agenda for today. What is financial aid? We'll start there. We'll talk about steps to apply for it. We'll talk about different types of aid. You may not have known that there are different types of financial aid, so we're going to talk about how each works in some detail. We're going to talk about what it actually costs, things to think about, to prepare for, what you can be doing, so tips, kind of tips and tricks to get the most financial aid and keep your costs at a minimum, and then we're going to leave time for questions. So, first of all, what is financial aid? Ask yourself that question. What do you think the answer is? This is what I think it is. Funds provided to students and families to help them pay for post-secondary educational expenses. Now, if you're in high school right now, you're in secondary school. So what comes after? Post-secondary. And that might be a university like U of O, it might be a trade school or something like that. So it's not just grants and scholarships, it's funds, right? Different types of money that can help you afford college. And the goal is to make college more accessible for you and your family. So there are different types of financial aid. We're going to talk about financial aid that you earn through your accomplishments. We're going to talk about financial aid that you get because you have a high financial need if you're from a low income family. So there's different types of financial aid that you can get and you can put together to make this dream possible. So let's start with what you can do to apply for aid. So I want you all to ask yourself if you've ever heard the name of the main application for financial aid. And it's an acronym, which means it's made out of letters. I want you to think about whether you've heard of it before. It sounds kind of funny when it rolls off the tongue. FAFSA. Okay, so the FAFSA is the free application for federal student aid, and it's underlined here, free. So there are some services that you might pay for, like taxes, somebody to do your taxes or your parents' taxes. But that's not the case when you're applying for financial aid. It's free. And it really doesn't take that long. It actually only takes about 30 minutes for most folks. And there's a lot of opportunities to get help from your high school and from others, from U of O, for example. So this is the main application for financial aid. It becomes available on October 1st of each year. So it's actually coming up. If you're going to be a senior this coming year, then you get to do the FAFSA in just a couple of months. You get to do it. It's exciting. It is exciting in a way, right? Because this is the key to getting financial aid to help you afford college. And you can do that at FAFSA.gov. Now, it's going to ask for the 2019 tax year information on that FAFSA. So that's hopefully, if your parents filed taxes, they've done that by now, and that's the information that's going to go on that FAFSA. So it's going to look at a number of factors, and it's going to tell us, or any school that you apply to, what your approximate level of financial need is. You can use that data retrieval tool to just take tax information straight from the IRS, straight into the FAFSA. So there's a lot of things in here that make it easy. There's help along the way. So if you have a question about what exactly are they asking, then you just hit the help button and it tells you what you need to put in. And you can even do this on an app, the My Student Aid app. So you could do this on your phone. Just be really careful because it's an official federal document. So it's important to put in information accurately to make sure you get the right amount of financial aid. Now, the FAFSA is a federal form. So this is the document that you would do, the application that you would do if you're a citizen or permanent resident of the United States. So we're going to talk about what you do if that's not your situation. But a couple last points about the FAFSA. It'll tell you right away if it thinks you're going to get some federal financial aid, such as the federal Pell Grant or the direct Stafford loans. So you're going to get some information right away. And one of the most important things, if you look on the bottom left part of the screen, I don't know if you can see it, but it says estimated expected family contribution. And we've grayed out the one in this sample here, but that is a super key piece of information because you could provide that to the financial aid office of any school you're interested in going to and say, hey, my EFC is this. What kind of need-based financial aid can I get from your school? And you can start to compare and see what your offers are looking like. Okay, if you are not a citizen or permanent resident, let's say you're a dreamer or you're DACA, you can still do the Oregon Student Aid application, the ORSAA. So the point of this application is the same as the FAFSA. It determines your and your family's ability to pay for college. But since you can't do the federal form, you do the state form. The state of Oregon still wants to give you financial aid, and so do schools in Oregon. So this is for Oregon residents only. And it again opens October 1st, same time as the FAFSA. You can apply at oregonstudentaid.gov. Now, there's a third type of application that some of you might do, and it's called the CSS profile. And this is for private schools, so they might want some additional information to supplement the FAFSA. And there's only 2 colleges in Oregon that ask for this, Reed College and Lewis and Clark in Portland. So check with the colleges that you're applying to see if they need the CSS profile. Also available October 1st at collegeboard.org. All right. So those are the main applications for financial aid, especially need-based financial aid. But there's scholarships out there, which is free money that you can use to supplement whatever comes from the federal government or from the state. So you really need to apply for most scholarships. And I just want to give you some tips right now about applying for those. And we're going to get into what you can do to make sure that when you apply, you actually get that money to help you pay for college. So first of all, you can apply for scholarships from colleges that you apply to. So they've got, most colleges have some kinds of financial aid that you submit an additional application for. As Oregon residents, you can apply for additional scholarships from the state of Oregon. So you've done your FAFSA or your ORSAA, then you go to oregonstudentaid.gov and you apply for additional scholarships that go through the state of Oregon. So you're kind of getting a sense that there's that main application for financial aid, either the FAFSA or the ORSAA, right? You do the FAFSA if you can, otherwise you do the ORSAA. And then you apply for additional scholarships from colleges that you apply to, from the state. You also want to be looking in your community. So go to your high school guidance counselor and ask them what kind of scholarships they know of based in your town, for example, or you could check with organizations that you or your parents have been involved with, even your church maybe. And you can look online on national search engines, and you can just put in information about you, your accomplishments, your GPA, your background, and it's going to show you scholarships that it thinks might be a good fit for you so that you can decide whether you want to submit an application. Again, scholarships usually require an application, so it's something extra. And it's just important for each scholarship to look at when they're due. Okay, because they're all going to have a different process and a different deadline. Okay, once you've applied for financial aid, again, this is in your senior year, what's going to happen next? Well, you're going to watch for emails because that's the way that most updates still are sent in the financial aid world. So you're going to get confirmation that your FAFSA was submitted correctly and received by the schools that you sent it to. Confirmation that the state received that application and that they're reviewing you for Oregon state grants. And you're going to get information from schools that you've applied to or been admitted to telling you if there are additional steps to take, like if you need to submit some documents to prove what you put on the FAFSA, like how much your parents made last year. And then around late March, you're going to start receiving financial aid offer letters. And this is the time where you could really compare the schools. So I always recommend that folks wait before getting their heart set on a particular place to see, what is that school offering, right? Do they really want me here? And more importantly, is this a place that I can afford? Because it's a cost benefit, right? You're making an investment in your future through a college education, but you want to make sure that you're not going to be taking on so many loans, for example, that it's not a good idea for you or your family. So once you get that financial aid letter, you'll be armed with all the information you need to make an informed decision. All right. So what might you see on a financial aid offer letter like that? What types of financial aid are available? Now, actually, I want to start with one that might not appear, it's not going to appear on your offer letter, but it's something you can do right now to help you pay for college. You can save. And we're going to talk about different types of savings accounts that allow you to put in even small amounts per month, if you're able to, that can really add up over time. On that offer letter, you're going to see gift aid like scholarships and grants. Again, most scholarships require an additional application, whereas grants usually are given to every student who meets a certain qualification. And that's gift aid, which means it never has to be paid back. You might see work study on there. Work study is an opportunity to earn some of your financial aid by working on or near campus. And a lot of that paycheck comes from the federal government. So there's a lot more work study jobs on campus than non-work study jobs. It makes it easy to get a job and earn some of your aid while you're in school. You might see federal loans on there. So these are loans that you can borrow as a student or that your parents may be able to borrow either from the federal government or from a bank to supplement your own financial aid. So I said I'd get into savings a little bit more. There's two kinds of savings accounts I want to touch on. The first one is called the 529 State Savings Plan. And every state has their own 529. I know it's not a very fun name to think of, 529. But this is a type of savings account where if you put some money in there, then that money doesn't incur federal or state taxes. So every year I do my taxes, it says what my income is and all that. It says what I owe the government. And then it asks me, how much am I putting in a 529 state savings plan? Like for me, if I wanted to get further education, or for my children who aren't born yet. But I could say I'm putting in $100. And that money is not, it's going to get subtracted out of what I owe the state, right? So it's a really easy way to save some money. You can choose how much you're willing to risk in order to get more interest. So that money is going to grow over time. The more you put in, the more it's going to stack up and the more interest gets added onto it. Interest is that little extra bit that gets added on every month so that it rewards you for saving. There's also the individual development account. Now, this is a type of account that's available just through the state of Oregon for low-income families. And it's similar to this 529 plan in that you can choose how much you want to put in over a period of time. But if you meet that commitment, then what you put in gets matched. So let's say that your family puts aside $25 a month towards your college. Right? Then at the end of, let's say, a 1-year period, if your family's been consistent on that, another $25 a month would be added to that account. So it's doubled by the end of that time period, right? And this is an account that is intentionally built for low-income families to be able to afford college, to be able to start a business, to be able to buy a house, things like that. So it's fabulous. You can connect with an individual development account by doing a Google search for Oregon IDA. And you would basically just start with an organization in your community that administers those kinds of accounts to families that live there. Now, scholarships. There's all different kinds of scholarships under the sky. So you can kind of look at this list and go, gosh, yeah, I was really involved in sports, or I'm really, I've written some good essays. I wonder if I could write like if I could do a creative writing contest and get some money that way. Uh, what if, my mom went back to school and so we don't have a lot of money? Well, maybe there's a scholarship out there for the children of parents who have gone back to school, so you don't have a lot of resources. There's all kinds of scholarships out there. So think about what your strengths are and to actually start making a list of those things. What are your strengths? What are your accomplishments? Because when you go to apply for scholarships, it's going to ask you, how many hours did you spend as the vice president of the cooking club at your high school, right? It's going to ask you how many hours and when did that start and when did it end? And you might write an essay about that experience. What did you learn? How did it help you become a leader, right? So those are the types of things that appear on scholarship applications, and it's really going to help you to start making a list now and as you go about the details of all those things that you're doing. I also recommend that you get to know your teachers because some of those scholarship applications require letters of recommendation. So think about teachers that maybe know you better or you've done really well in their classes. You might be asking them for letters of recommendation pretty soon. And you want to give them a lot of advance notice so they can get those in on time. I mentioned getting involved in extracurricular activities and taking on leadership roles. Grades are really important for financial aid. We're going to talk about how they directly translate to money for college, but also your extracurricular accomplishments. And generally speaking, scholarships are going to be looking for leadership and a long commitment over time, right? So it's less about just having certain types of things on that you can talk about and more about, did you learn things from them? Did you make an impact on your community? And write good essays. So you really have to ask yourself, what is this organization asking me? If they say, for example, a student came into my office and was saying, I applied for this scholarship and I didn't get it. Why do you think I didn't get it? And it was about an organization that her mother was involved with. And it said, how has this organization affected you? And the student, I saw her essay, she said, when my mom was involved in that organization, she was away from home and I had to take care of my little sibling and I didn't like it. So, okay, you're writing about the organization, but you're not writing about what the organization wants to hear, which is how did it have a positive impact on your life? So you really have to look at what is the organization asking for? They want to give a scholarship to a student that they believe in, that's going to do really well, that they can say, hey, we gave a scholarship to this student and look how well they're doing. They represent the values of our organization. Let's talk about the types of scholarships you might get from a college or university. So I just provide here the University of Oregon scholarship information so that you can get a little bit of a sense of what's out there. Now, the first three on there, Summit, Apex, General University, you'll automatically be considered for those when you apply for the University of Oregon, when you apply for acceptance. And they each have different types of requirements. So the Apex, for example, requires a 3.6 GPA and an ACT score of 25. And I think the SAT score is like 1250, somewhere around there. So if you met those requirements, you would automatically get the Apex scholarship. If you didn't quite meet them, you might get General University scholarship. So those ones are automatic. Now these ones at the bottom that have an asterisk, they require additional applications. And we have a list on our website of all the scholarships that are available to our first year students. And it's super clear about which ones require an additional applications and which ones don't. And for the ones that do have an application deadline, when do you need to submit those applications by? You can see that the STAMP scholarship is awesome. It covers your full tuition and fees, your food and your housing, and actually provides funds to help you study abroad or things like that. It only goes to about to 5 Oregonians each year. So super prestigious. You have to apply before November. There's also, for example, the Diversity Excellence Scholarship, which is one that I really encourage all of you to apply for if you apply to U of O. And you've got to meet those deadlines. You have to apply by February of your senior year to get this for your freshman year at U of O. But this scholarship, it's going to look at your extracurricular activities and accomplishments. It's going to look at your academic accomplishments, letters of recommendations from your teachers. It's going to look at your race and your ethnicity, your background. It's going to look at your financial need, and it's going to look at your essays that you write about how you can contribute to diversity at the U of O. So it's a whole number of things, and it's not as black and white as we would say about these other scholarships that are like, I didn't quite meet that test score, so I didn't get any money, right? This one is different because it's looking at a number of factors, and if you're really strong in one area, it can make up for any weakness in another. Now, along those lines, I want to talk about a program that is super special, and it's only at the U of O. There are some similar programs at, say, Portland State, but the way that Pathway Oregon works is unique to the University of Oregon, and it's one of the programs that we think is the most exciting about U of O. So if you qualify for Pathway Oregon, your tuition and fees are covered without using any loans for 4 years. I'll say that again. If you qualify for Pathway Oregon, you don't have to pay tuition and fees at the University of Oregon. Okay? It's going to check that, well, we're going to talk about the requirements. But the other thing that you get is support from dedicated advisors. So you're going to have somebody, let's say you're, not from Eugene and you don't really know where to start. Maybe nobody in your family has gone to college before, right? There's one person that you can go to for all your 4 years when you don't know where to go. And you can ask that person, what classes should I take? Or I'm thinking about doing this major. What kind of career options do I have? Or how can I get involved and make friends? How can I get more financial aid? That's what your Pathway Oregon advisor is there for. So students who qualify for Pathway Oregon, they graduate with less money owed on their loans and in a faster time frame and with better grades than students who don't qualify for Pathway Oregon, because they're supporting each other and they have support from the university both financially and with advising. Okay, how do you get it? So you're already an Oregon resident? Check, done, right? You have to have graduated from an Oregon high school in the last 2 years. So you're either coming straight to U of O, or you're coming to U of O pretty soon after you graduate from high school without taking any community college credits in between or any other college credits. So it's for first-time freshmen, right? You do your FAFSA by February 15th. So it's open in October, due by February 15th. So you've got about a 5-month window in there in your senior year when you want to get that done. Now, this is really important. You have to be eligible for the federal Pell Grant to get the Pathway Oregon scholarship. So that means you have to be able to do the FAFSA, first of all. You have to be a citizen or permanent resident. And you have to have a very high level of financial need as determined by the FAFSA. That would get you the federal Pell Grant, and it would get you Pathway Oregon. And lastly, you need to have a minimum 3.4 high school GPA. And we will take your weighted GPA if you're taking some honors courses that give you those extra grade points. So if you do your FAFSA on time, you have a high financial need, you have a 3.4 GPA, your tuition and fees at the University of Oregon will be taken care of. Pretty cool. And Josie's going to talk a little bit about how that would make a really big impact on your ability to pay. Now, let's say you want to go to an Oregon community college instead of going to university first off. So there's some financial aid available to you there as well. You can get the Oregon Promise Grant, which would cover most of your tuition at Oregon community colleges. You can kind of see what those amounts are. So this will cover you for basically like an associate's degree, like a 2-year degree, and then you could potentially transfer to a 4-year university. So there is a separate application for that at oregonstudentaid.gov due by June 1st. It requires a 2.5 or higher unweighted GPA, all right? And you've got to enroll within 12 months after you graduate from high school. So the idea here is that you are coming straight from high school, going into college, because it's the best time of your life to continue your education, and there's a lot of resources available to you to make sure that you don't get sidetracked, right? So if you have high financial need, there is additional money waiting for you from the state of Oregon and from the federal government to make sure, and from the U of O, to make sure that finances are less of a barrier for you. Now, one thing I want to point out, I've mentioned that there are some programs at U of O like Pathway Oregon where you have to be a first-time freshman to get them. So if you were to go to a community college first and get Oregon Promise, you wouldn't qualify for Pathway Oregon at University of Oregon. So it's really important to ask a financial advisor about, what kind of aid would I get or would I lose if I take this kind of course of action? Okay, now what does it actually cost? Think to yourself about what kind of costs you might incur. So what's a big one? Folks usually think about paying for classes. What's that called? Tuition. And what's another big one? Let's see, you're on campus, you're living in a residence hall, right? Or a dorm. Some people call it a dorm. So those kinds of things are direct costs. Those are things that the university is going to charge you for. It's going to be on a bill. You and your family are responsible to pay it. Now, what are some other costs? In college, you got to pay for books. And maybe you need to travel from home to get to school. Maybe you need a computer, right? So all these things are indirect costs. These are things that you can get financial aid to cover, but we won't bill you for those things, right? So you're getting a sense of all the things that go into what it costs to go to college. Now, these are big numbers, and I want to start off by saying that financial aid exists so that you don't pay these full amounts, right? So whenever you go to the website or look at a pamphlet for a college you're interested in, it's going to say this is what it costs. But you're not going to pay that because you're going to have financial aid, and because of this presentation and because you're working super hard and you're meeting deadlines, you're going to have a bunch of scholarships that are going to help you reduce these costs. But I still want to talk about the differences. So at a two-year public school, you're probably living at home. That's why that little asterisk is there next to the number. So you're not paying for like a residence hall or a meal plan if you're living at home. So that's going to be your cheapest option, but there's less financial aid available at a two-year public school. At a four-year public school like the University of Oregon, the cost increases significantly, but you're getting a whole lot more for that, right? You're getting the opportunity to earn a four-year degree, which can open a lot of career doors. You can go study in a different country. You can study in the University of Oregon submarine. You can change your major a couple times. You can be on campus with students from all over the world. There's just so much. There's a recreation center. There's so much going on at a four-year university. So it costs more, but there's more financial aid available as well. And then lastly, a four-year private school, you're going to see that their costs look crazy. Like, oh my gosh, my parents don't even make that in a year, right? But they usually have private scholarships that they can give you. So you might see that it costs $53,000, but then they give you a $30,000 scholarship, and then it costs similar to a four-year public school. So bottom line here is that you don't know what it's going to cost until you apply to that school and you apply for financial aid. I'll say that again. You don't know what it's going to cost until you apply for that school and you apply for financial aid. So it wouldn't make sense to look at these numbers and say, I'll never be able to afford that. My family's too poor, because that's not actually what you're going to owe the school, right? So what you should do is you should apply for places where you know that you can succeed, right? And then see what they offer and then make your decision. So let's just look at U of O specifically. So this is our tuition and fees, our estimated housing. These are just estimated costs for 1 year. Our tuition and fees don't increase anymore. So once you start at U of O, it won't increase while you're a student here. That's called the Oregon Guarantee. And on things like indirect costs, you might not pay those kinds of costs for books. You might choose to I think I unmuted there by accident. I hope y'all can still hear me. Laura, can you nod if you can hear me? Okay, cool. So your books and supplies, if you check those out from the library, that's going to be a big zero, right? Or pretty close to it. So you're getting the sense that even though you're seeing these kinds of costs listed for schools, right, you can get scholarships and grants to cover a lot of it. Okay, nearing the end of the presentation here. So what can you be doing now? If possible, start saving money. We talked about those savings accounts. So you and your family can contribute to those when you're able, but start early because that's going to add up. Have a family discussion about paying for college. Money can be kind of a touchy subject, and it's really important to have super clear communication with your family. If they're saying, for example, we don't have anything to contribute, you're on your own, or if they're going to say, we're going to make it work no matter what, that really is going to influence what options are available to you, right? Research and apply for scholarships. File your FAFSA or your ORSAA October of your senior year. You can look at the websites of any college you're considering and just in the little search on there, type in net price calculator. Now the net price is what you would actually pay when you take the costs of that school and you subtract financial aid, right? The net price is what you and your family actually pay. So there's a net price calculator on every college's website where you can get a rough estimate of what you might pay at that school, right? Super useful and helps you compare. Now, important deadlines. January 15th is when our admissions application is due. Soon after that, February 15th, you have to submit transcripts and test scores. And by March 1st, you have to submit your FAFSA or ORSAA to meet the priority filing deadline, which is to get the most automatic financial aid. So again, between October 1st and March 1st, you do your FAFSA or your ORSAA, and you do your OSAC, your state scholarships as well. And then for each individual scholarship that has its own application, deadlines are going to vary, but most are due by the end of February. So if it's cold outside, it's time to spend your time applying for scholarships. It'll be the best paying part-time job you ever have, probably. All right, and this process repeats every year. So you do the FAFSA, you wait to see what you're offered, you submit documents that are requested to confirm how much financial aid you're going to get for the next year, and you apply for scholarships. And it happens every year, and there's a reevaluation of your financial need and your merit every year. Okay, so let's take a couple of questions that came in. Let's take 3 minutes. And here's our contact information. I also want to mention that my colleague Kelly Mason is very comfortable speaking with families in Spanish about financial aid. So if that's a service that would be beneficial to you and your families, then when you call or email here, just ask for Kelly Mason. So let's see, any questions that came in?
Nick, there's been a lot of questions about the 529 savings plan and how you can start one and if you can use it if you go out of state.
Sure. Yes, you can use it if you go out of state. You can use an Oregon 529 savings plan, for example, at any college in the United States. You can start one. I would just recommend typing in like Oregon 529. Other states offer them as well, but only the Oregon 529 will give your family that benefit of no Oregon taxes on the money that you put in there.
We had another question about someone had heard that a lot of scholarship money goes unused every year. Is that true? And can you kind of speak to that competitiveness of scholarships?
That's not the case at the University of Oregon. We offer scholarships to every student that meets the criteria, and we're usually pretty tapped out. But it could certainly go, I think that probably pertains to private scholarships. So they might have like a really specific criteria. It might be like, we want a student with at least a 3.8 GPA from Canby. And they're interested in studying music, So that's really specific, right? And that might go unused, but boy, if that's you, if you meet that criteria, you're gonna get payday, right? So that's why it's so important to talk with your guidance counselors and to look online for scholarships and do those online searches so that you don't miss any that you would qualify for.
Great question about how scholarships kind of stack together.
Yeah, stacking. So it kind of depends on what type of scholarship you have, how they stack. So like some U of O scholarships, there's a specific question about Pathway Oregon. So Pathway Oregon is our guarantee that you never have to worry about tuition and fees. Now, if you've already got the Summit Scholarship or something that counts towards that guarantee, Pathway is going to come in and it's going to pay the difference between your Summit Scholarship and your tuition and fees, right? So those stack in a sense, but Pathway is a guarantee for tuition and fees. So other types of scholarships would go towards your housing, like if you have some from the state or from a private agency, but your UO scholarships wouldn't go towards your housing if you have Pathway Oregon. Do athletic scholarships stack? Yes, you could use, if you've got like a partial athletic scholarship, and then you've also got some aid from the state or from the federal government, those can all go together. Those can go towards your bill. You know, give you money for books, that kind of thing.
Nick, thank you so much for answering all of our questions. I think we have so many good ones. So remember everyone that from 3 to 4 today, we'll have another financial aid officer who can answer your questions and ask the experts. So thank you so much, Nick. And I think we're going to shift over to Josie, who's going to talk a little bit more in depth about budgeting.
Hi, everyone. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and share my screen because Nick and I worked very hard on this budget template. And correct me if I'm wrong, Nick, but I'm pretty sure we wanted to make this available to all of the students for them to use. Is that correct?
That's exactly right. So what you all are seeing here that Josie's going to come through, it's actually a working calculator, if you will. So if you type in your own estimates for what your costs are going to be, it's going to calculate those for you. So it's a great tool that you can use.
Yes, thank you so much. So basically what I'm going to do with this, because there are a lot of numbers here, a lot of words, it looks kind of intimidating and a little crazy. So I'm just going to walk you guys through everything that is involved in this tool and how you can use it to help yourself budget for college and living away from home. So first, I want to show you down here, there are 3 different tabs, each of which I'm going to briefly go through. This first example is an example of a student's budget who does not have the Oregon path or the Pathway Oregon scholarship. The second example is the exact same one, but for a student who does have Pathway Oregon. And then the last one is a blank one that I will get to at the very end. So first things first, we have this section up here. This is monthly income for the month of blank. So it could be monthly income for the month of January. So let's say that I am working 12 hours a week at a part-time job at $15 an hour. That would mean for that month I get roughly $720. Scholarships will obviously vary based on the scholarships you apply for as well as the ones you receive. Let's estimate that I have $1,000 in grants. I take out a $600 subsidized loan and a $200 unsubsidized loan. It's important to know the difference between these two because subsidized loans, as you can see here, does not accrue interest. And then let's say that your parents are able to give you roughly $50 a month that can go towards groceries or rent or something like that, just a little estimate. So this means adding all of these things up that your monthly income for that month is going to be roughly $2,600. This section down here is monthly living expenses. So all of the things that you have to pay for each month that are not related to school. So that's the only difference between this section and the next section. So you have rent, assuming you're living in a room in a shared house or an apartment, your rent might be around $500, probably a little bit more. But if you're living in a dorm on campus, it's going to be roughly $1,420 a month. Utilities, so water, Wi-Fi, electricity, $70 is a decent estimate. Your cell phone bill will vary based on your phone plan. Groceries for one person, $200 is a pretty reasonable estimate per month. If you go grocery shopping maybe like 2 times in 1 month, for example. Fun fact about transportation, if you are an LCC or UO student, as long as you have your ID with you, you can ride public transportation, including the city buses and the EMX for free. And that is how I have been getting to school for soon to be 4 years. So it is a really, really helpful thing for students. Student loans, no matter how many student loans you end up taking out, even if you don't take any out, you don't have to pay them back while you are enrolled. So this cost is not something you necessarily need to worry about at this time. Insurance and medical expenses, you might be on your parents' plan, you might not have a credit card, so you might not have to worry about those costs and those monthly bills. Entertainment, this can obviously vary, but I would, and I'm sure Nick would agree, it's smart to have a maximum amount set for entertainment each month so that you don't go too crazy with going to movies or going out with friends. So $25 could be a couple nights out, going to dinner with friends or going to a movie. Laundry will also depend on your living situation. And then it's always smart to have a little miscellaneous or safety fund. I would recommend between $50 and $100 in case there is an emergency or an unexpected increase in other expenses. So according to this section, your monthly living expenses for that month would be roughly $865. School expenses for the year. So this is all for the year, but then we split it up down here. And this is based off of the University of Oregon. Tuition and fees would be roughly $13,000 a year. Books, this can heavily vary. As a current student, I can tell you that I have had terms where I have paid probably $50 for my books, and other terms where it's been upwards of $200. It just depends on the classes that you're taking. Lab and course fees, $30 to $50 is a decent estimate. Club and activity fees, if you participate in that, $30 to $150, again, depending on the club or activity, that's a good estimate. And then there is a $200 admissions fee, so that's something you should keep in mind. So looking at the total year, around $14,000, but total per month is around $1,000. So here we have this section. This is a really important section. This is the how am I doing part of the budget worksheet. So you can see here, this is where you get your total for each month. So your monthly income from the very first section minus your monthly living expenses and your monthly school expenses will give you this number. So this is the amount of money that you will have at the end of each month. So we can see that based on this budget template, this example, a student who is going to the University of Oregon who does not have the Pathway Oregon Scholarship, with all of these costs, will have roughly almost $200 left over at the end of the month. If this number is negative, it is not something to be scared of. If it is positive, it could be really, exciting, and you might want to put it towards something fun, or, like socializing or traveling or whatever. But it also could just be smart to consider putting it towards other expenses like loans, so that you don't have to take out more loans and you don't have to worry about costs like that. So keep that in mind if this number is positive. So that is the example for a student at the University of Oregon that does not have the Pathway Scholarship. In the second example, this template, I should say, is identical to the first one. The only difference is right here. And this is where the Pathway Scholarship is plugged in. So you can see already that their monthly income goes up by roughly $1,000. So now this student has $3,000 in income each month with the Pathway Scholarship. So again, this, other than the Pathway Scholarship, all of this is the same. Monthly living expenses are all of the same. School expenses are all the same. But then where you see the huge change is back down here at the how am I doing section. So monthly income totaled from above minus your monthly living expenses minus your school expenses. A Pathway student will have almost $700 left over at the end of the month. So again, this number, it's super exciting to have that much money left over at the end of the month. Consider putting some of it towards savings, putting some of it in that emergency fund, putting some of it towards school so that you can take out less loans. But again, this template is identical to the first one. The only difference is this Pathway Scholarship. So you can really see what a difference that scholarship makes. And as a Pathway student, it's definitely made a huge difference for me as well. So last but not least, At the very end here, this is, again, the exact same template, but it is empty. You can see right here, there is nothing plugged in. So this is going to be the tool for you to use to sort of figure out what your budget for while you're in school is going to look like. So the way that we have made this for you, as Nick said, this is a working budget sheet for you. So just to sort of show you, if I wanted to plug this in, let's say that I am making $730 a month, it immediately plugs it in down here. So you don't have to worry about any addition or subtraction or making any math mistakes. This sheet will do it for you, so you can see how much money you're going to have at the end of the month immediately. So I'll just go ahead and take this out. And here in this estimated amount sections that you see over here, we've just put some numbers to kind of give you an idea of what you can plug in here in case you have absolutely no idea what to put in there. It can just give you an idea of some of the costs to expect. Same with the living expenses for each month. Again, some estimated amounts for you. School expenses, this could also be something that you plug in based on, you know, whatever school you are interested in attending. It doesn't have to be the University of Oregon, or you can compare multiple schools if you're trying to figure out which one might, you know, be influenced by cost, you know. So and just again to reiterate, all of this will add up in these little totaled bars. And then at the very end, you can just take each of these costs, plug them in down here, and you will see how much money you have, or in this case, do not have at the end of each month. So again, since in this example, we are in the negative, I just want to reiterate that if the difference is in the negative, that is not something to be scared of. It does not mean that college is not possible for you. I can't do it. There's no way it's going to happen because I'm $38 short. That is absolutely not the case. All this means, and we put a little note down here, is that you may need to find additional income sources to cover these expenses, to cover this $38 or however much money you end up still needing. And some of these sources can include savings, state and private scholarships, parent income from work if they're able to help you, parent loans and additional student loans, as well as, if it's possible for you, picking up a couple other shifts at work if you need to make up for that money. So I know that I just threw so many numbers at you and lots of information, lots of words, and a whole bunch of different budget templates, but this tool Nick and I made specifically to help you guys. So I would highly recommend, once we give you access to this, sit down with, if you know somebody who's in college, sit down with them, sit down with a high school counselor or advisor, sit down with a family member, sit down with some of your friends, and just play around with these numbers a little bit, and you know, give yourself an idea of what to expect when you get to college. So all of that being said, takeaways are: don't be scared, it's possible, and definitely use tools like this and other ones that you can find. Like Nick was saying, there's like a net price calculator that a lot of schools on their websites will have. So hopefully this is helpful to all of you. And with that being said, I think I can hand it back to Nick for any more questions that anybody has.
Great, thank you so much, Josie. So I know we're at 11:53. How are we doing? Do we have time for a couple of questions?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
All right. So we're watching the chat here, and if you have questions about anything we've covered today or didn't cover, whether in regards to financial aid or the budgeting worksheet, let's answer a couple of those questions now. I want to reiterate that there's going to be financial aid counselors available in the Ask the Expert session today from 3 to 4 and tomorrow from 3 to 4 as well. So that would be a great place to go if you didn't get your question answered today. Let's see. Okay, so I've started looking for scholarships on various websites. Almost everything I'm seeing is just random lottery style scholarships that you apply for by making an account with their website. Are they beneficial? How can I find larger? I don't know about those. It seems like maybe they're just trying to get your info. You know, I would really focus on scholarships that are asking you to put in some work, because you're probably going to get some more money as a result of that work. And what I mean by work is submitting a detailed application, writing an essay, things like that. There's going to be less students applying for those, so there's more of a chance you'll get one. Scholarships.com is a place to start. You can look at the College Board website. We've got some other recommendations for online searches on our U of O financial aid website. But I really recommend looking in your community as the first place to go, because there's not going to be as many students applying. And if they know you, or if they like, what you've done in their community, more likely to get you a scholarship. Must college freshmen live on campus their first year? That is the requirement because there's so many benefits to living on campus. It's actually not, once you look at both the meals and the cost of the residence halls, it's actually not super expensive. It's a little bit more expensive than living off campus, but you're getting so much more as a benefit. So you can request an exception. Let's say if you live in Eugene, if your family's in Eugene, but for most students, they do that. How do we go about getting scholarships if we do not go to school in the fall? So let's say, I think you're talking about like if you're not going to high school in the fall because of COVID-19. If you're planning to go to college next fall, so fall 2021, you're still applying for scholarships between October and February, basically. So it's assuming you're still going to graduate on time in spring 2021, you want to be applying before that happens. What UO scholarships require SAT scores? There's a list on our website. The automatic merit scholarships generally require SAT scores or ACT scores. So you can get into U of O without standardized test scores, but some of our big scholarships do require them. What else? When should we apply for university-specific scholarships if we transfer from a community college? Similar time frame. If you can apply by February, March, that's the right time. There's a little bit of extra leniency for transfer students, but it's generally going to be early in the year, at least 6 months before you start at U of O. When can I start applying for scholarships? Senior year of high school. There might be some, sometimes there's like a science fair, and if you do well in the science fair, in your sophomore year, they'll hold on to it for you for when you graduate. Are there any resources that pay for your application fees? If you're a Pathway Oregon student, you do not pay application fees. They are waived for you. So that's a great thing to do. You can also request a waiver if you've submitted a FAFSA and we can see that you have financial need. How much does it cost to apply to U of O? I think it's about $200 right now. Can an 11th grader get scholarships and then use them for their senior year? There's going to be some of them out there. I would say talk to your guidance counselor. That's the best place to learn about those. Should I try to defer my admission or take a gap year if I can't do online school? So if you've been admitted to the U of O, then you want to talk with one of our gap year counselors in the Office of Admissions about whether any scholarships that you were offered can be held for you. So some of them maybe could be held and some maybe can't. It may be that they reevaluate you after that time. And generally in a gap year, you have to be doing something like working or volunteering that you're making an argument is going to really benefit you during that time, but you also can't take like a bunch of community college credits because then you'll be a transfer student. Getting near the end of our time here. I don't want to go over, so just want to check in again with your hosts.
How about one last question, Nick?
Okay. Can you apply for the Pathway Oregon program if you're a senior in high school? So there's no separate application for Pathway Oregon. If you apply for admission at the University of Oregon and you're admitted, then you submit your FAFSA and you meet all those criteria to qualify for Pathway Oregon, you're gonna get it. So apply for admission, submit your FAFSA. That's it, right? No separate application. We'll let you know if you qualify. Every student that qualifies gets it. And you would apply for admission and do your FAFSA in your senior year of high school. All right.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. You all students have so many great questions. I appreciate it. I really would love to encourage all of you at the 3 to 4 o'clock, Ask the Experts. Bring your parents or guardians. other folks that might have questions too. That's a good place to be able to, you can think about it a little bit more and ask some more questions as well then. So financial aid is a pretty big topic, a lot of information. Nick and Josie, you both did a knockout job, really breaking things down. I appreciate it so much. Sales students, you are OISP students, we will also have all of these presentations, their links such as Josie's budget template, Nick's presentation, they will all be posted on our website under the resources tab. It'll take us a few days to get them all up there, but keep checking back. They will be there. Thank you all again. This is absolutely possible to make it happen. We just have to be resourceful. Nick and Josie, once again, everybody give them a round of applause. Thank you so much. Woo! That was fantastic. We will see you all soon. For those of you that are staying for lunch meeting with Megan and staff, just stay on this session. Otherwise, take a nice break and we'll see you at your 1 o'clock flight paths. Have a good time.